EgyptAir is the flag carrier airline of Egypt. The airline is based at Cairo International Airport, its main hub, operating scheduled passenger and freight services to more than 75 destinations in the Middle East, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas, with an extensive network of domestic services focused on Cairo, Egypt's capital. The airline is working to regain profitable operations following the revolution of 2011. EgyptAir is a member of Star Alliance, having joined on the 11th of July 2008, and also of Arabesk Airline Alliance and the Arab Air Carriers Organization. History. Early years. MASR Airwork. Alan Muntz, chairman of Airwork, visited Egypt in 1931. At that time, he expressed his intention of starting up a new airline in the country. The new enterprise was named MASR Airwork, with MASR being the Egyptian for Egypt. On the 31st of December 1931, the government granted the new company the exclusivity of air transport operations. A division of MASR Airwork named MASR Airlines was established on 7 June 1932, to promote the spirit of aviation among Egyptian youth, becoming the seventh carrier in the world. The headquarters of MASR Airwork S.A. was in Al-Marza Aerodrome, Heliopolis, Cairo. The initial investment was £20,000, with ownership split between the MASR Bank, Airwork, and Egyptian private investors. Operations started in July 1933, initially linking Cairo with Alexandria and Mersa Matruh using de Havilland DH-84 Dragon equipment. By August that year, the frequency on the Cairo-Alexandria service had been boosted to twice daily. In late 1933, a twice-weekly Cairo-Aswan flight that called at Asiyut and Luxor was inaugurated. Via Port Said, a flight from Cairo that served Lydda, Haifa and Palestine was launched in 1934. On 3 August 1935, a test service via Lydda with final destination in Cyprus began using DH-86 aircraft. The run was terminated on 20 October that year. The Alexandria Port Said Cairo Minya Asiyut run was opened in late 1935. During 1935, the airline carried 6,990 passengers and 21,830 kilograms of freight. For the year, these regular services flew 419,467 miles. The Alexandria-Asiyut route, which called at Port Said, Cairo and Minya, and the Cairo-Cyprus-Haifa-Baghdad run were the two operative services the carrier had by 1936. HADJ flights commenced in 1937. Operations to Cyprus resumed in 1938 with a Cairo-Lydda-Haifa-Larnaca service. The carrier operated all British aircraft in the early years, and by April 1939 the fleet comprised one DH Dragon, 1 DH Dragonfly, 5 DH Rapides, 2 DH-86s and 1 DH-86B that worked on the Alexandria Cairo, Alexandria Port Said Cairo Minya Asiyut, Cairo Asiyut Luxor Aswan, Cairo Lydda Haifa Baghdad and Cairo Port Said Lydda Haifa routes. The Egyptian government took over all the routes in September 1939. In 1940, a service to Beirut and Palestine was started. 3 Avro 19s were incorporated into the fleet in 1944. 3 accidents that took place in late 1945 prompted strikes for a fleet renewal and caused operations to come to a total halt since February 1946. Services resumed in May, and by late 1946 the fleet included 4 Avro Ansons, 1 Beech at 11, 5 Beech C-45s, 4 de Havilland DH.89 Dragon Rapides and 2 North North American at 6 Texan. The carrier benefited from the Allies' regional aircraft disposal station that sold surplus military aircraft being located in Egypt. 2 more Beech C-45s were delivered in 1947, and the Vickers Viking was incorporated in 1948. In May 1949, all the capital and the aircraft park was acquired by the government. After the Egyptian state became the sole shareholder, the company changed its name to Masrair SAE. Masrair continued to fly the same routes as its predecessor. In 1951, 3 Languedocs were acquired. These were intended for deployment on longer routes. The Languedocs replaced the Vikings on flights to Geneva, Khartoum and Tehran. 3 Vickers Viscounts were ordered in early 1954. During that year, the carrier transported 64,539 passengers. At March 1955, Masrair's fleet comprised 1 Beechcraft, 3 Languedocs and 7 Vikings. The 3 Viscounts were still pending delivery. Douglas DC-3s were subsequently purchased and deployed on domestic routes, as well as to neighbor Arab countries. Delivery of the first 2 Viscounts occurred in December 1955. They were put on service in March the following year. The number of passengers transported during 1955 had grown to 77,050. A number of aircraft were lost during the Suez Crisis. In February 1957, Masrair was renamed United Arab Airlines. Late that year, 2 more Viscounts were ordered at a cost of £600,000 minus £800,000, including spares. Prior to this, an aircraft of the type was lost while standing at Al Mazar Airport during an air raid. United Arab Airlines. Following the formation of the United Arab Republic by Egypt and Syria on 1 February 1958, Masrair was renamed United Arab Airlines in March that year. A Cairo-Athens-Rome-Zurich service was launched on 7 July. Syrian Airways merged into UAA on 23 December, with the latter absorbing both the routes and the equipment of the Syrian carrier. By March 1960, the airline had 579 employees. At the time, the fleet comprised 1 Beech D-18s, 4 DC-3s, 6 Vikings and 6 Viscounts. One of the Viscounts crashed into the Mediterranean on 10 April, killing 17 passengers and a crew of 3. With registration SUALC, the first of 3 Comet 4Cs was delivered on 9 June. Operations using 2 of these aircraft started on 16 July the same year. By October 1960, Masrair had Comets deployed on the Cairo-Belgrade-Prague, Cairo-Rome-London, Cairo-Jeddah and Cairo-Khartoum runs. DC-3s on the Cairo-Alexandria-Mersa-Matruh, Cairo-Asyut-Luxor, Cairo-Luxor-Aswan and Cairo-Port Said Alexandria services, and Viscounts were used for the non-stop flights that linked Cairo and Alexandria. An order for 2 more Comets was placed in November 1960. Syria's association with UAA ended in October 1961, when Syrian Arab Airways was established by the Syrian government in Damascus. The route network and fleet that had been taken over by UAA was returned to the new company. 2 more Comets, the 4th and 5th ones, were ordered in early 1961. 3 Shash DC-6s were purchased in April 1961. The Cairo-Lagos run was extended to Accra on 12 June and flights to Moscow commenced on 21 June. a contract with Boeing for the purchase of Boeing 707-320B with delivery dates between November 1961 and April 1964. The deal fell through when the airline could not find financing. On the 1st of November, a new flight to Karachi and Bombay was launched, and the 6th and 7th Comets were ordered in December. These were delivered in April 1962. Also in 1961, the Cairo Nicosia run, suspended since the Suez Crisis in 1956, was restored, flown with Viscount equipment, routed via Bangkok and Hong Kong. The Bombay service was extended to Tokyo in May 1962. The three-strong crew of a DC-3 that crashed at Heliopolis on 16 May 1962 died, and 26 more people perished in an accident involving a Comet at Bangkok on 19 July the same year. Two more Comets were acquired in August, entering the fleet in September the same year and during 1963. On 15 February 1963, the route to Baghdad was resumed after a 3-year hiatus, but the service was short-lived, as political tensions between Egypt, Iraq and Syria forced the disruption of flights to both this destination and to Damascus. On 1 April, a new service to Rhodesia was inaugurated. The carrier experienced 2 deadly accidents during 1963 that left a death toll of 93. The first one took place on 12 May when a DC-3 crashed near Alexandria, killing 27 passengers and a crew of 4. The second accident occurred on 28 July and involved a Comet that crashed into the ocean near Bombay, killing 62. Short of aircraft to serve Tokyo, the route was terminated. In addition, another Comet, Suam, resulted damaged in Benghazi on 12 September. The 9th and final Comet was delivered in 1964. Also that year, 3 Pan Am DC-6Bs were purchased, and another 3 were acquired from Northwest Orient. These aircraft were put on service on domestic routes and began replacing the Viscounts. Also aimed at operating domestic services, 7 Antonov and 24s were ordered for $2.3 million. By March 1965, 7 Comet 4Cs and 4 Viscounts worked on a route network across Europe, the Middle East and North Africa, along with the Cairo-Prague-Moscow run and a service to Lagos and Accra. On 1 August, a subsidiary airline named Misrair started operations. A contract worth $30 million for 3 Boeing 707-320Cs was signed with Boeing on 15 June 1966 and also included 4 additional machines on option. On 1 November, the airline suppressed the stop at Prague on the Cairo-Prague-Moscow service, and in January 1967 UAA started the Cairo-Frankfurt-Copenhagen run. On the 22nd of June 1967, a Comet crashed in Kuwait while landing. There were no fatalities, but the aircraft was written off. In August 1968, the airline took delivery of 2 Ilyushin Il-18s. The first Boeing 707 was handed over by the aircraft manufacturer on the 21st of October the same year. It was later put into service on the Cairo-London corridor. One of the Il-18s was involved in a deadly crash while attempting to land at Aswan Airport on the 20th of March 1969. That March, the carrier started services to East Berlin with Il-18 equipment, and in June the route to Tokyo via Kuwait, Bombay, Bangkok and Hong Kong was resumed. A number of accidents occurred during the early 1970s. The first one took place on 14 January 1970 and involved a Comet 4C that crashed on landing at Addis Ababa from Cairo. No one of the 14 people on board resulted seriously injured. The second accident UAE went through in the year took place on 30 January when an Antonov and -24 volts Su-AOK experienced the collapse of the landing gear on touchdown at Luxor. On 19 February Su-AL, another Comet, aborted takeoff from Munich Riem Airport at 30 feet, fell back to the runway, slid until the end of it and hit a fence. Another and -24 volts Su-AOC barely landed at Cairo on 14 March. A third and -24 volts was involved in an accident on 19 July. The aircraft was on a training flight and crashed near Cairo, killing the 3 occupants. On 2 January 1971, a Comet hit sand dunes on approach to Tripoli, with the loss of lives of the 8 passengers on board and the crew of 8. At March 1970, UAE had 7,810 employees. The fleet comprised 7 Un-24Bs, 3 Boeing 707-366 Cs, 6 Comet 4Cs and 3 Il-18s. The fourth Boeing 707 was delivered in March 1970. On 23 May 1971, the acquisition of 2 Ilyushin Il-62s was announced, scheduled for delivery in June the same year. June 1971 saw the airline using these aircraft on European routes, supplementing the services operated with the Boeing 707s. The Il-62s were introduced on Asian services on 9 July. The name of the airline was changed to EgyptAir on 10 October 1971, following the country changing its name to Arab Republic of Egypt. EgyptAir inherited UAE's staff, equipment, assets and liabilities. On 19 March 1972, a Douglas DC-9-32 carrying Yugoslav registration UAH crashed into the Shamsam Mountains, 4 miles southwest of Aden, killing all 30 occupants on board. On 16 June, an Ilyushin Il-62 was involved in a landing accident with no reported fatalities. In July, 8 Tupolev-Tu-154s were ordered for $60 million, with 3 of them slated for delivery in July 1973, 3 in November 1973 and 2 in March 1974. Prior to firming the transaction up, EgyptAir had also considered the Boeing 727, but financing for these U.S.-manufactured aircraft could not be arranged. Under the terms of the contract, light maintenance was to be performed in Egypt, whereas airframe and engine overhauling was to be undertaken in the Soviet Union. In July 1972, the acquisition of 4 Boeing 707-320Cs valued at $40 million was announced. At this time, the airline had 4 Boeing 707s already in operation. The handover of the new aircraft had been arranged for March, May, June and September 1973. On 5 December 1972, one of the 4 707s already in the fleet crashed near Cairo while on a training flight. A crew of 6 perished in the accident. Reports indicating the airframe had been shot down were denied by the Egyptian government. An Ilyushin Il-18 registration Su-AOY was involved in a deadly accident near Nicosia on 29 January 1973 when it crashed into mountainous terrain, killing all 37 occupants on board. Delivery of the 4 new Boeing 707 777s took place during the year, with 2 more 707-320Cs being ordered in September. In October, the 3 IL-62s were returned to Aeroflot because of elevated operational costs and technical issues. Also that month, the first Tu-154 entered the fleet and was used for pilot training. From Moscow, the handover of the Tu-154s was made through London Heathrow, where these aircraft were fitted with British-made seats. The outbreak of the Yom Kippur War in 1973 had forced the carrier to suspend the Tokyo service. It was resumed on the 15th of March 1974 via Bombay, Bangkok and Manila. During 1974, the flight to Khartoum was extended to Kinshasa. One of the brand new Tu-154 aircraft, Su-AXO, crashed on the 10th of July 1974 after takeoff from Cairo International Airport during a training flight, killing a crew of 6 on board. Following the crash, EgyptAir requested the return of its Tu-154 fleet to the Soviets and a refund for the price paid for them. The capacity shortage caused by the grounding of the Tu-154s was partly alleviated by the lease of aircraft. The airline had already been looking for other aircraft to replace them, and an order for 6 Douglas DC-950s was placed in November. On the 9th of December, an IL-18 registration year IMK crashed into the Red Sea. There were 9 fatalities. In January 1975, the government turned the order with Douglas down and moved to Boeing for the provision of new equipment. An agreement with the Soviets for the return of the Tu-154s was struck on the 10th of February. Early in the year, the An-24s were traded back to the company that represented the Soviets as a partial repayment for the loan taken to acquire the aft-engine Tu-154s. The Boeing order was finalized by March and consisted of 4 Boeing 727-200s and 6 Boeing 737-200s. There were plans to trade the first 3 Boeing 707-320Cs in for the new aircraft as part of the deal with Boeing, valued at $60 million. The transaction was partly financed by the United Arab Emirates. In May, the order was homogenized to 8 Boeing 737-200s with deliveries slated for April and May 1976. Arrangements were made to sell the 4 Comets, both to raise money to finance the new aircraft and to have an all-Boeing fleet. A link between Cairo and Milan began in January 1976 and a new flight to Vienna started in April, following allegations from the Egyptian parliament that airline officials had been bribed by Boeing to favor the 1975 order. The chairman Gamal Irfan resigned in February. On the 22nd of April, a Boeing 737 flying from Cairo to Luxor was hijacked by 3 Palestinians. An Egyptian commando team regained control of the aircraft with no damages to its structure. The 4 Comets were sold to Dan Air on the 9th of October. During the year, 7 Boeing 737 Advanced entered the fleet. A serious accident involving a Boeing 707 took place on the 25th of December when a non-regular flight from Cairo to Tokyo crashed into a textile mill while on approach to Bangkok, killing all 43 passengers and a crew of 9. Fatalities and injured people on the ground were also reported. Early in 1977, the first arrests related to the bribery case involving the Boeing order took place when a former pilot admitted he had been bribed for $150,000. In February, an agreement to lease 2 Airbus A300B4 aircraft from German Air and Trans-European Airlines was signed. On the 1st of April, services to Abu Dhabi and Karachi were launched. The first A300 service flew the Cairo-Karachi route on 3 June. The lease conditions for the aircraft owned by Bavaria German changed to a lease purchase agreement. EgyptAir eventually acquired the two leased A300B4 aircraft. During 1979, three A300B4-200s were ordered for $115 million with a delivery span between September 1980 and September 1981. The carrier took options on 4 more aircraft of the type. Financing from the 3 firmly ordered aircraft was partly provided by the Midland Bank and the Dresdner Bank. EgyptAir is a state-owned company with special legislation permitting the management to operate as if the company were privately owned without any interference from the government. The company is self-financing without any financial backing by the Egyptian government. The airline underwent a major corporate re-engineering in 2002, when its structure was changed from a governmental organization into a holding company with subsidiaries. The move coincided with establishment of the Egyptian Minister of Civil Aviation and the government's ambitious strategy to modernize and upgrade its airports and airline. The airline was given the right to operate without any interference from the government and the duty to do so without any financial backing. EgyptAir wholly owns EgyptAir Express and Air Sinai. The airline has stakes in Air Cairo and Smart Aviation Company. In 2004, EgyptAir became the first IOSA-certified airline in Africa. In May 2006, the airline launched a regional subsidiary called the EgyptAir Express with a fleet of new Embraer 170 jets with services commencing in 2007. The carrier links Cairo with Sharm el-Sheikh, Harada, Luxor, Aswan, Marsa Alam, Abu Simbel and Alexandria in addition to secondary regional destinations to complement the parent company's pattern of service. In June 2009, the subsidiary received the last of the 12 Embraer 170 aircraft on order. This is fortified by huge assets of more than $3.8 billion. The airline's financial year is from July to June. For the fiscal year ending 31 July 2007, EgyptAir achieved a record total revenue of $1.143 billion. Total group revenue grew by 14% as compared with the previous year. In early 2007, the airline partnered with the Egyptian Ministry of Civil Aviation and Egyptian Holding Company for Airports and Air Navigation to form a new corporate airline, Smart Aviation Company, based at Cairo Airport. In 2009, EgyptAir's operations at its Cairo International Airport hub were notably overhauled due to the inauguration of the new Terminal 3 in April 2009. The airline transferred all its operations to the new terminal that has more than doubled the airport's capacity. Under the Star Alliance Move Under One Roof concept at Cairo Airport, all Star Alliance member carriers serving Cairo have moved to the new Terminal 3. In 2010, the airline will overhaul operations at its Alexandria base by transferring operations from the older facilities at Alexandria International Airport to the brand-new airport in Borg El Arab Airport. The airline's CEO also stated the company was evaluating whether to set up a low-cost carrier subsidiary for its Alexandria operations to address the growth of LCCs in the city. During the 2009-2010 Paris Air Show, the airline announced a new venture with US lessor Aviation Capital Group and other Egyptian private and public shareholders to establish a leasing joint venture focusing on the Middle East and Northern Africa region. The new joint venture, named Civil Aviation Finance and Operating Leases, will initially focus on narrow-body aircraft. Following the revolution of 2011, EgyptAir is reported to have suffered considerable losses. Egypt's civil aviation minister Wael El-Mayadawi said the airline lost an estimated 1.3 billion Egyptian pounds, or around $185 million, over the 2012-13 fiscal year, mainly due to an increase in fuel prices, the devaluation of the Egyptian currency and continuous strikes within the company. Losses for 2011-12 were apparently around double the 2012-13 figures. The carrier has reportedly suffered total losses of more than £7 billion, or nearly $1 billion, since the 2011 uprising. In the middle of 2012, a group of flight attendants began asking for the right to wear hijab as part of their work uniform. The company granted the request, and hijab-wearing flight attendants first appeared in November 2012. In November 2015, 2 weeks after the crash that brought down Metrojet Flight 9268 in the Sinai Peninsula, Russian authorities banned EgyptAir from flying to Russia, citing security concerns. In January 2016, EgyptAir was fined $140,000 for leasing aircraft to Sudan Airways during 2010-11, breaking economic sanctions imposed to the country in 1997. Corporate affairs, ownership and structure. EgyptAir is a state-owned company, 100% owned by the government of Egypt. The EgyptAir holding company was created in 2002 with 7 companies, with 2 further companies added at later dates. There are 3 carriers which operate under the same AOC but are managed separately and have their own profit and loss accounts. EgyptAir Airlines, the core airline company. EgyptAir Cargo, a dedicated cargo airline. EgyptAir Express, the domestic and regional airline. Other companies within EgyptAir holding company are EgyptAir Maintenance and AMP Engineering, originally an in-house operation but now also carrying out third-party business, EASA Part 145 and FAA certified. EgyptAir Ground Services, providing services to over 75% of the air carriers flying to Egypt. EgyptAir In-Flight Services. EgyptAir Tourism and AMP Duty-Free Shops. EgyptAir Medical Services. EgyptAir Supplementary Industries Company, subsidiaries and associates. The airline has stakes in Air Cairo, Smart Aviation Company, Air Sinai, EgyptAero Management Service, LSG Sky Chefs Catering Egypt, CIF Leasing. Business trends. Trends for recent years for the EgyptAir holding company and for its main subsidiary EgyptAir Airlines are shown below. Trends for EgyptAir Express and EgyptAir Cargo are shown on the relevant articles. Figures for the year ending the 30th of June 2011, and the lack of detailed accounts since then, reflect the disruption that occurred because of the Egyptian Revolution in early 2011. Head office. EgyptAir is headquartered in the EgyptAir Administrative Complex on the grounds of Cairo International Airport in Cairo. Logo. The airline's logo is Horus, the sky deity in ancient Egyptian mythology, chosen because of its ancient symbolism as a winged god of the sun, and usually depicted as a falcon or a man with the head of a falcon. Destinations. As of June 2013, EgyptAir serve 81 destinations, 12 in Egypt, 19 in Africa, 20 in the Middle East, 7 in Asia, 21 in Europe and 2 in the Americas. Alliances. In October 2007, the Chief Executive Board of Star Alliance voted to accept EgyptAir as a future member, the first airline from an Arab country and the second African one, after South African Airways, to join the airline alliance. In a ceremony held at Cairo International Airport on the 11th of July 2008, the carrier became the 21st member of this alliance, 9 months after it started the joining process. code-share agreements. As of April 2015, EgyptAir has code-share agreements with the following airlines: